Last week, Miss Lily Johnson, Pops's granddaughter, asked if Pops knew any stories about chickens. Well, as it happens, Pops did. This story takes place on a big sugarcane farm in the middle of Kenya. Kenya is in the middle of Africa, and right in the middle of the sugarcane farm lived a man, his wife and their 5 children. They were one of the happiest families Pops had ever met. They all lived in a small, round hut with walls made of mud and a roof made of dry sugarcane. The floor was made of cow muck, not soggy cow muck, because that would be disgusting, but rock-hard cow muck. And Mrs. Bawani would sweep the floor every day so that everything was very clean and tidy. In the hut was a small wooden table, just big enough for Mr. and Mrs. Bawani and one guest to sit and eat at. The children would always sit on their small beds, which were also made of cow muck, and so was the guest's bed. And guess who was the guest? Yes, it was Pops. So Pops has slept in a bed made of poo. Mr. Bawani and his family used to live in a big town, where Mr. Bawani was a bank manager and Mrs. Bawani a teacher. One day God spoke to them and said he wanted them to leave their jobs and their nice house and go to live in the sugarcane farm, to preach the gospel to all the people who lived and worked on the farm. So they did exactly what God said, and I suppose that was the reason they were so happy. Mr. Bawani had invited Pops to help him preach the gospel. Every afternoon they would walk to a big clearing in the field where a wooden stage had been built. There would be lots of music, singing and dancing, and everybody would gather round the stage. About 2,000 people, workers and their children from the farm and the surrounding villages. Every morning, if Pops wasn't visiting people, he would sit outside their hut drinking tea from Mrs. Bawani's best china, a lovely baked bean can. Mrs. Bawani kept chickens, and while Pops was living with the family, one mother hen produced a lot of eggs, and the eggs produced lots and lots of baby chicks. So one morning there was Pops with his baked bean can of tea, watching Mother Hen clucking away happily, and all the baby chicks running all over the garden looking for things to eat. One would pick at an ant, another would be trying to catch a fly and never succeeding, while others would be turning over leaves to see if there was anything worth eating underneath. It was a beautiful African morning with a pure blue sky, and the sun was not yet hot enough to chase the Mzungo, a white man, into the shade of the hut. Everything was peaceful in the farmyard. The chicks were chirping, Mother Hen was clucking, and Pops was drinking his tea. Then suddenly, Mother Hen's voice changed. She stopped her friendly clucking, and now it was a loud alarm, as if she was calling all her baby chicks to come back to her as quickly as their little legs could manage. From all over the yard, baby chicks were running back to Mom. What was the reason for the panic? Pops looked up, and there, high above the farmyard, was a big bird of prey, ready to swoop down and take one of the little chicks home for lunch. But he was just too late. Mother Hen had opened up her wings like a huge feathery umbrella, and all her family were hiding safely under them. As she closed her wings, she gathered all her children safe under her, and there wasn't going to be any takeaway chicken for Mr. Eagle that day. One day, as Jesus was talking to the people in the city of Jerusalem, he looked at the crowds and cried out, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often have I wanted to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings." Jesus sees danger long before we do and calls out to his children. If we let him, he will gather us under his wings, where there is no fear, but perfect love for every child, big or small, who puts their trust in him.